If I told you that one man just gutted the entire leadership of the world's largest military, you would probably think I was talking about a movie. But this is not Hollywood. This is real life, and is happening right now inside China. The most powerful general in the People's Liberation Army, a childhood friend of President Xi Jinping, a combat veteran, a man once considered absolutely untouchable, has just been detained and placed under investigation. His name is Zhang Youxia, and his fall from grace is being called the most Shakespearean moment in Chinese politics in decades. If you find this kind of deep geopolitical analysis valuable, do me a favor right now. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know, and it keeps content like this coming your way. Now let us get into it. On January 24th, 2026, China's Ministry of National Defense dropped a bombshell. General Zhang Youxia, the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, and General Liu Zhenli, the chief of the Joint Staff Department, were both placed under investigation for what the ministry called serious violations of party discipline and law. That is the official language, the coded phrase that Beijing uses when someone powerful is about to lose everything. And in China, when they come for you with that language, there is no coming back. Now, let me put this into perspective for you. The Central Military Commission, or CMC, is the body that controls every single aspect of China's military. It oversees the People's Liberation Army, all 2 million active duty personnel, the Navy, the Air Force, the Rocket Force, everything. And out of its 7 original members appointed in 2022, 5 have now been purged. 5 out of 7. The only people left standing are Xi Jinping himself, the chairman, and one other man, General Zhang Youxia, who happens to run the military's anti-corruption body. That is it. 2 men now sit atop the command structure of the world's largest fighting force. This is the smallest central military commission since the Cultural Revolution era under Mao Zedong. But here is what makes this whole thing truly jaw-dropping. Zhang Youxia was not just any general. He was Xi Jinping's guy. Their bond goes back generations. Both men are what Chinese political insiders call princelings, meaning their fathers were revolutionary heroes who fought side by side during China's Civil War. Zhang Youxia and Xi Jinping literally grew up in neighboring compounds in Beijing. They were childhood friends. Xi personally promoted Zhang to vice chairman of the CMC back in 2017, and then in 2022, he broke protocol by keeping Zhang on past the mandatory retirement age. That is how much he trusted him. As one defense analyst put it, Zhang had everything she could want: loyalty, pedigree, intelligence, respect, and a decades-long relationship. And yet, none of it mattered in the end. The official People's Liberation Army Daily ran an editorial the day after the announcement that left no room for interpretation. It accused Zhang and Liu of having seriously trampled on and undermined the system of ultimate responsibility resting with the CMC chairman. Let me translate that for you. They are saying these 2 men challenged Xi Jinping's personal authority over the military. The editorial went further, claiming the pair had gravely fostered political and corruption problems that weakened the party's absolute leadership over the military and caused immense harm to China's combat readiness. Those are not just accusations of stealing money. Those are accusations of betrayal at the highest level. Now, corruption is nothing new in the PLA. Let us be real about that. For decades, China's military has been drowning in what one analyst described as a tsunami of money. As Beijing poured hundreds of billions into modernizing its armed forces, that cash created enormous opportunities for graft. We are talking about procurement contracts with vague specifications, weak performance benchmarks, and flexible delivery timelines. State-owned defense companies held vice-ministerial ranks within the party hierarchy, giving their executives enormous influence over military purchasing decisions. Officers reportedly paid for their promotions. That is right. You could literally buy your way up the ranks of the PLA. One of the most egregious cases involved Lieutenant General Gu Junshan, who ran military housing, and was found to have amassed multiple houses, valuable artwork, and even a solid gold bust of Mao Zedong before he was sentenced in 2015. But here is the thing. Xi Jinping has been waging this anti-corruption campaign since he first came to power in 2012. Back then, his slogan was that even tigers need to be afraid, not just flies. And he was not bluffing. He took down Bo Xilai, a fellow Politburo member. He went after Zhou Yongkang, a former senior party leader. He restructured the entire military in 2016 to strengthen oversight and deter corruption. He created new monitoring mechanisms. He empowered the military's Discipline Inspection Commission. And yet, over a decade later, the highest-ranking generals are still falling in droves. Think about that for a second. After more than 12 years of anti-corruption campaigns, the people at the very top, the people Xi himself chose and promoted, are the ones getting purged. That raises a deeply uncomfortable question. Is the corruption the disease, or is it part of the system itself? Let me walk you through the timeline of this military earthquake, because it has been building for years. In mid-2023, the leadership of the PLA rocket force, which controls China's nuclear and conventional missiles, was decimated. Commander Liu Chao, his deputy Lu Guangbin, former deputy commander Zhang Jinping, and several others were all removed on corruption charges. This was a massive deal because the rocket force is one of the most strategically important branches of the entire Chinese military. Then, Defense Minister Li Shangfu, who had only been in the job for about 7 months, disappeared from public view in 2023. He was formally expelled from the party in June 2024, along with his predecessor, Wei Fenghe. Both were tied to procurement corruption linked to the rocket force and aerospace programs. By late 2024, the net had widened to the CMC's Political Work Department, the body responsible for ensuring loyalty and overseeing promotions across the military. Admiral Miao Hua, who ran the department, was suspended and investigated. His deputy, He Hongjun, was also taken down. Then came October 2025, and that is when things really exploded. In a single wave, 9 senior generals were expelled from the Communist Party and the military. 9. In one shot. The list included He Weidong, who was the other vice chairman of the CMC and the third most powerful military figure in China after Xi and Zhang Youxia. Included the former commander of the Eastern Theater Command, which is the military unit directly responsible for any potential Taiwan operations. Included the commander of the People's Armed Police Force, the political commissars of both the Army and the Navy, and the new commander of the Rocket Force, Wang Ho-bin, who had literally just been appointed after the previous leadership was purged. Let that sink in. The replacement they put in charge to clean up the rocket force ended up getting purged himself within about a year. According to Taiwan's National Security Bureau, over half of the 35 PLA generals with the rank of full general or equivalent had been absent from public view for at least 6 months. 16 of them had been missing since December 2024. More than 20 top officers were removed just during Xi's 3rd term in office. Some compilations put the total number of generals purged since 2012 at somewhere between 52 and 65. And now, with the fall of Zhang Youxia and Liu Zhenli in January 2026, Xi has essentially completed the destruction of his own high command. But was this really about corruption? Or is something else going on here? That is the million-dollar question, and experts are deeply divided. One analysis from the Jamestown Foundation argues that the charges against Zhang were different from those against the previously purged generals. The language used suggested that Zhang and Liu may have actually defied Xi Jinping's directives on military affairs in an open manner. The official statements did not use the typical phrases about abandoning their original mission or suffering a collapse of belief. Instead, the accusations focused on damaging the military's political awareness and undermining the system of responsibility under the CMC chairman. In other words, this might not have been about money. This might have been about power and disagreement. And there is evidence to support that reading. According to several analysts, Zhang Youxia and Xi Jinping had divergent views on how to modernize the PLA. She wanted speed and scale. He wanted everything done fast. Zhang, with his actual combat experience and deeper understanding of military operations, reportedly favored a more focused and deliberate approach. When the 15th Five-Year Plan recommendations were released in October 2025, there were clear differences between what the party center and Xi wanted and what Zhang articulated as the key priorities. Zhang emphasized networked information systems, unmanned and intelligent warfare, and the rollout of new training models. Xi's version focused more broadly on military struggle and a frugal force-building approach. Zhang did not include those themes in his priority list. As the Chinese saying goes, there can never be two tigers on the same mountain. Former U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who met with Zhang in 2024, said the general spoke in an unvarnished way, reflective of someone who did not feel like he had to be cautious. That kind of independence might be exactly what got him in trouble. In Xi's China, the issue is no longer whether you did something wrong. It is whether you will be needed at some moment to be the wrong person in the right place. Now let us talk about what this means for Taiwan, because that is the elephant in the room that nobody can ignore. Xi Jinping reportedly ordered the PLA to be ready to take Taiwan by 2027. Former CIA Director William Burns stated publicly that U.S. intelligence confirmed Xi had issued that order. 2027 is also the 100th anniversary of the PLA's founding and the year of the next Communist Party Congress, where she would seek an unprecedented fourth term. The timeline is not a coincidence. But here is the paradox. By purging the entire senior leadership of his military, Xi may have actually pushed that timeline further out. Think about it logically. An invasion of Taiwan would be one of the most complex and costly military operations in modern history. It would require a massive seaborne assault against fierce resistance, while simultaneously holding off potential intervention from the United States and Japan, and dealing with the inevitable global economic fallout. You do not pull off something like that with a leadership vacuum at the top of your military. Nathan Attrell and Andrew Wilford of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute laid it out plainly. First, Xi appears unconvinced of the PLA's readiness. Second, leadership churn disrupts planning for complex joint operations. Third, anti-corruption campaigns breed risk aversion, not initiative. Fourth, the 2027 timeline is a capability target, not a fixed invasion deadline. Former U.S. Ambassador Joseph Detrani said it bluntly. You have got to say this is not going to happen by 2027. And if it is, you have got to wonder what sort of planning and what sort of leadership would go in. But there is a flip side to that argument, and it is genuinely unsettling. By removing voices of caution like Zhang Youxia, who had actual battlefield experience and apparently was not afraid to push back, Xi has concentrated even more decision-making power in his own hands. Neither Xi himself nor the only remaining uniformed CMC member, Zhang Shengmin, have military command experience. Senior PLA officers may now be even less willing to challenge Xi out of fear of being purged themselves. He could end up surrounded by sycophants who tell him only what he wants to hear. And that, my friends, is how miscalculations happen. As one group of analysts warned, the purge does not signal de-escalation. It may increase the risk of sharper coercive pressure short of invasion. She will act on his own assessment of confidence and control. There is another dimension to this story that deserves attention. The Wall Street Journal reported that Zhang Youxia has been accused of leaking nuclear secrets to the United States. Now, that is an extraordinary claim, and most experts are deeply skeptical. Michael Kovrig, a former Canadian diplomat who spent over 1,000 days detained in China, dismissed that narrative completely. He said that operationally and politically, it does not fit. This looks far more like politics than espionage. Stories of Zhang leaking secrets, plotting a coup against Xi, or even getting into armed confrontations in Beijing have been circulating on Chinese social media and in diaspora communities. But as analysts point out, the inner circle of Chinese leadership is a largely watertight place. These sensational narratives need to be treated with enormous skepticism. What is less debatable is the real-world impact of all this turmoil. The Pentagon's own assessment, released in December 2025, acknowledged that the purges have created short-term disruptions in organizational continuity and force readiness. But here is the concerning part. The Pentagon also warned against assuming long-term weakness. The report stated that while these purges very likely create near-term setbacks, China's forces could emerge from corrective restructuring more reliable and capable than ever before. The PLA continues to make steady progress toward its 2027 goals. China has almost tripled its inventory of precision attack ballistic and cruise missiles to 3,500 since 2020. It has almost doubled its missile launchers to 1,500. It has unveiled 2 new 6th-generation stealth fighter aircraft. And it continues to build and expand the world's largest navy by ship count. So we are left with this deeply paradoxical situation. On one hand, Xi Jinping has demonstrated extraordinary political strength by purging virtually the entire senior leadership of his own military, including his closest childhood friend. No one is safe. No one is untouchable. The message to every remaining officer and party official is crystal clear. If I can move against those closest to me, who would dare challenge me? On the other hand, this very strength may be Xi's greatest vulnerability. After so many years of purges, the highest leaders are still falling. That does not make the anti-corruption campaign look successful. It makes entrenched corruption look like it is part of the system's DNA. And remember, every single one of these purge generals was someone Xi himself chose and promoted. The survivors of this campaign will not necessarily be the cleanest officers. They will be the ones who are best at hiding. And that creates a chilling dynamic within the system. When the economy slows, no one dares to reform. When social problems erupt, no one dares to take charge. Under external pressure, no one dares to decide. In military modernization, no one dares to innovate. The machine may look stable from the outside, but it grows slower and more brittle with each passing day. That is the precise opposite of what Xi set out to achieve when he launched this sweeping anti-corruption drive over a decade ago. The consequences of this latest move are likely to surface most clearly in the personnel arrangements for the 21st Party Congress, expected to be held late next year. Xi will need to rebuild the CMC essentially from scratch. He could maintain the current stripped-down structure, which would make the CMC little more than an extension of his personal will. Or he could bring in civilians to oversee the military, something that has not happened since he took office. He could also empower the civilian corruption watchdog to investigate the PLA directly. Whatever he chooses, the fundamental challenge remains the same. Xi has created a system where political loyalty is valued above all else, above competence, above experience, above the ability to speak uncomfortable truths. And in a world that is getting more dangerous by the day, with tensions escalating over Taiwan, with a new trade war raging between Beijing and Washington, with the PLA being asked to prepare for potential conflict against the most powerful military alliance in human history, that prioritization of loyalty over capability could prove to be a catastrophic mistake. As one foreign policy analysis put it, officials now understand the cold logic. The issue is no longer whether you did something wrong, but whether you will be needed, at some moment, to be the wrong person in the right place. That is not a recipe for a strong military. That is a recipe for institutional paralysis dressed up as political stability. What we are witnessing right now is nothing less than the most dramatic reshaping of China's military command since the Tiananmen Square era. And the ripple effects will be felt not just in Beijing, but in Taipei, in Washington, in Tokyo, and across the entire Indo-Pacific region for years to come. The world's second superpower has just torn out the heart of its own military leadership. And whether that makes the world safer or more dangerous depends entirely on what happens next inside those opaque corridors of power in Zhongnanhai. So what do you think? Is Xi Jinping cleaning house to build a stronger military? Or is he sowing the seeds of his own downfall by surrounding himself with yes-men who are too afraid to tell him the truth? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear your take on this. And if you found this breakdown valuable, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and subscribe if you have not already. Ring that notification bell so you never miss an update. We are covering all of this in real time as it unfolds. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.